Thank you all for joining us today as we continue our health and wellness series at Darien Library called A Picture of Health. This fall, Darien Library has compiled an extensive series of lectures, meet the author events, panel discussions, technology workshops, and film screenings, all to provide you with new ways to think about your health, obtain practical tips, and help motivate you to become more informed healthcare consumers. We hope that you always turn to us as a resource for information like this. And I want to remind you to, if you haven't done so already, please pick up a copy of our brochure which lists all of the events that are taking place in the series. We're covering a wide range of topics, including medication management, integrative medicine, sleep disorders, pain management, stress management, diabetes, personal safety, Medicare, and tonight's program on nutrition. So there is definitely something for everyone. Tonight's presentation, To Eat or Not to Eat, focuses on healthy eating and nutrition for the entire family. The topic of nutrition has really come to the forefront in recent years, especially with the publicity of major films like the award-winning Food Inc. If any of you may have seen that yesterday at the library, and books and columns by authors such as Michael Pollan and Mark Bittman. But with all this information also comes a lot of questions like, should I spend extra money to buy organic? What constitutes a portion size? How much food and what variety of food groups should I be feeding to my family? What are great snack choices to help me overcome that 3 p.m. slump? And how can choosing the right foods help me be proactive in obtaining health and overall well-being? So here to answer these questions and more is a wonderful panel of experts, and I'm very pleased to present them to you. Speaking first is Jessica Yep, registered dietitian and founder of Nutrition Consultants. Following Jessica will be Mimi McLean, holistic health coach for the well-balanced life. And following Mimi will be Rana Corlin, healthy eating specialist at Whole Foods Market. Each speaker will present, and then we'll have a question and answer session with all three of our experts. I'm going to request that you hold your questions until the end of the session to give each of our speakers a chance to present fully. And lastly, I want to thank Whole Foods Market in Darien for providing all of our wonderful healthy snacks for today. They're very delicious and are a great way to get us on our healthy start. And now, please join me in welcoming our speakers for this evening.
Well, good evening. Can you all hear me? Well, good evening. My name is Jessica Yep, and I'm a registered dietitian. A little louder? Okay. Well, good evening. My name is Jessica Yep, and I'd like to thank you all for coming here today to learn more about nutrition and portion control. Tonight I'll be covering the following topics, but first is for some background about myself. I'm a registered dietitian in private practice here in Darien. I received my bachelor's degree from Vassar College, where I majored in Asian Studies and minored in International Economics. And then I received my Master of Science in Clinical Nutrition from New York University. But after graduating college, I didn't begin my career in nutrition right away. I actually worked as a banking analyst at the Federal Reserve Bank for about 4 years, and it was there that I realized my interest in nutrition. I realized that maintaining healthy habits through exercise and good nutrition was very important. I was working very long hours. I didn't have much time to think about when or where my next meal was coming from. I was eating very unhealthy meals most days of the week. I was always coming home too tired to go to the gym to work out, and as a result I was starting to gain a little bit of weight. My cholesterol level and blood pressure levels, although they were normal, my cholesterol levels were in the high end of normal, and with a long family history of high cholesterol, there was reason for me to kind of start to take care of myself better. So I wanted to find ways to help myself as well as to help others understand the importance of maintaining healthy habits, and this is how I became interested in nutrition. We'll discuss portion distortion of some common foods, and then we'll also learn about how you can determine what appropriate portion sizes are. We'll look at portion size versus serving size. Is there a difference, or do these terms mean the same? We'll also look at some handy methods to help you keep track of your portions. And finally, we'll go over some ideas to help you prevent from eating too much. So let's talk about how increasing portion sizes has changed in the world around us. You can probably think of a lot of different examples today of food and food-related items that have increased in size over the years. For example, you go out to eat at a restaurant, you may have noticed that the entrees that come out to you are enormous. They can be easily shared amongst 2, 3, or more people. And with this growth in entree size comes a growth in waistlines as well as body weight. And because entrees have gotten larger, in order to accommodate these larger entrees, dinner plates had to get larger. And in order to accommodate these larger dinner plates, dishwashers had to get larger to accommodate these larger dishes. And so you can start to see a kind of a chain reaction happening. In some of our newer cars today, car cup holders are now adjustable, and that is to accommodate these larger takeout drinks as well as soft drink bottles. Very interesting for those of you who like to cook. Cookbook recipes have changed over the years. For example, the other day I was making a batch of brownies, and I was using the Joy of Cooking cookbook. And I'd always been referring to an older version, an earlier edition. And the original recipe said it yielded 30 brownies. I got myself an updated version of the Joy of Cooking cookbook, and using the same exact amount of ingredients, same everything, the portion size now yields 16. So basically, the portions have doubled in size. Clothing size, interesting here too. Clothes are actually getting larger, but the tag sizes are getting smaller. And it's sort of a psychological game by clothing manufacturers to help people feel better about their size because they're purchasing a smaller size. And advertisements, we see this everywhere. Children are aware of it. You see signs and advertisements everywhere for, family value meal, bargain size, super size. So basically, food manufacturers want us to purchase more food for cheaper cost, but it's affecting our waistlines. It's fine if you're purchasing this food for, a large family, or if you're going to portion out the food and eat it over time. But the problem is how many people actually do that. People unfortunately end up eating the entire portions in that one sitting. And now I'd like to talk to you about how some very basic foods have changed over the years. And we call this portion distortion. So about 20 years ago, you went to the deli and you asked for a bagel. And you'd come and they'd give you about a 3-inch diameter bagel. It's about maybe 2 to 3 ounces worth. And today you go, especially in New York City, and you get a New York style bagel, and it comes out to about at least 6 inches, so anywhere from about 4 to 9 ounces of bread. And you might be wondering, well, what's 4 to 9 ounces mean? Well, in this bag, I've got a slice of bread, and a typical slice of bread is about 1 ounce. So if you were eating that bagel from 20 years ago, that was about 2 to 3 ounces, you would be eating anywhere from 2 to 3 slices of bread. And today, if you were to eat that New York style bagel, that 4 to 9 ounce bagel, you would be eating 4 to 9 slices of bread. "20 years ago, you go out to an Italian restaurant for a meal, and you'd order pasta. You'd get about 1 cup of cooked pasta with sauce and some meatballs. And today, you go and you get a platter of pasta that you can share, and it's at least 2 to 4 cups on average of cooked pasta, and easily shared, amongst 2 to 4 people. And if you just look at the calorie difference, the caloric difference, it's about 500 calories. And you may be thinking, well, what's 500 calories? Well, it would take someone doing some vigorous housework for about 2.5 hours just to burn off that extra 500 calories. 20 years ago, you order French fries, and you get this nice little packet of about almost 2.5 ounces worth. And today, your typical French fries comes in at almost a half a pound. And the 2.5 ounces portion is probably equivalent to the size your children would get from, their Happy Meal or their kids' meal. 20 years ago, you get a soda pop, and they came in those cute little glass containers, about 6.5 ounces. And today you get a soft drink, and they typically come in like 20 fluid ounces. That's if you want the bottle version of it. And if you ever took a look at the sugar content of soda, you'd be surprised. For example, in a 12-ounce can of soda, there's about 39 grams of sugar. Now, you might be wondering, well, what's 39 grams of sugar? Well, if you can just remember that for every 4 grams of sugar, that's the equivalent of 1 teaspoon. So for 39 grams, let's round it to 40 grams of sugar just to make the math a little easier. 40 grams divided by 4 grams gives you 10. So that's 10 teaspoons of sugar. And if you've seen these packets, 1 packet represents 1 teaspoon of sugar. So 10 teaspoons of sugar in this 1 can. Oops. So it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that's how much sugar you would be drinking. And if you're curious, for the 20 fluid ounce bottle of soda, there's about 66 grams of sugar. So translated into teaspoons, that's about 16, 17 teaspoons of sugar. And my last example, 20 years ago, you went to the theater and you ordered popcorn, and you would get, a standard size bag, and it's about 5 cups of popcorn. And today you go and you get a bucket of popcorn, so about more than double the size. All right, so what's the point of all of this? What am I trying to get at? Basically, I'm trying to encourage you all to develop portion size awareness so that you will understand how much you're eating at any time. I want you to develop the ability to estimate the number of servings in your portions. But before we learn how to do this, I think we need to cover those 2 terms that I mentioned, portion sizes and serving sizes. Unfortunately, people use these terms interchangeably, but they don't mean the same thing. When you talk about portion size, you're talking about how much food a person actually eats, how much they plate out, how much they put on their plate. Serving size refers to the standard unit of measure for food, and it's usually the recommended amount that a person should eat. You'll often find this in nutrition education material, like on food labels, or on government websites like mypyramid.gov. So something like a half cup of cooked rice, half cup of cooked pasta, 3 ounces of meat, chicken, or fish, a tablespoon of oil. Those are all serving sizes. And tonight you'll learn some nutrition basics on how to use visuals to help evaluate your portions. So by developing portion size awareness, you'll become in control over how much you eat, whether you're going out to eat, whether you're going out to dinner at a restaurant, if you're going to an all-you-can-eat buffet, if you're going to a party, or just enjoying a home-cooked meal. I don't know if you all had a chance to get this handout. It's called What is a Serving? But before we even talk about how to use visuals, you can actually use, traditional methods as well. Your typical measuring cup, measuring spoons, even a kitchen food scale. But I find that using some common everyday items to help you better visualize or eyeball portion sizes can help you. So for example, we have a half cup of cooked rice or cooked pasta. If you can just imagine a baseball cut in half, and if you were to fill up that baseball with a half cup of cooked pasta or cooked rice, that would be a serving size. If you're having a salad, about a cup of raw greens would be one baseball. If you're having a cup of milk or yogurt, 1 cup is 8 ounces. And if you can just, picture an 8-ounce yogurt cup. If you're having some nuts, a serving size would be 1 ounce or a 1/4 cup, and that would be the equivalent of a golf ball. And going back to the baseball, a half cup of chopped fruits or vegetables. For cheese, 1.5 to 2 ounces of cheese. You can use dice, 6 to 8 dice would be the equivalent of that, or those string cheeses, that's about 1 ounce. For meat, we often refer a typical serving size to be about 3 ounces. 3 ounces would be like this, or it's easier probably to remember a deck of cards. When you're talking about teaspoon of oil or butter, you can use the tip of a woman's thumb or the cap of a 16-ounce water bottle, or now that manufacturers are trying to use less plastic, these echo caps, 2 of these would be the equivalent of 1 cap, so 1 teaspoon. For nut butter, 2 tablespoons would be the equivalent of a walnut. Sorry, I don't have that one. And finally, a medium piece of fruit, like an apple, a pear, a plum, orange, this is a peach, would be roughly the size of a baseball, give or take. Or you can use a tennis ball. Tennis ball is slightly smaller than a baseball. So finally, strategies to prevent from overeating. My first suggestion would be to use a smaller plate. If you can use a plate that's about 9 to 10 inches in diameter, so kind of like this. This is just short of 10 inches. And you want to remember when you're plating your food, you don't want to pile the food up high so that the food is falling off. And I also suggest people to fill your plate half full, like the top portion, half full with fruits and veggies, 1/4 with meat, and the other 1/4 with a starch. Starch meaning, your rice, a slice of bread, pasta, potatoes. And just as many of you may already do with children, you want to pre-portion out snacks. You never want to eat out of the bag, because when you're eating out of the bag, you never know how much you're eating until it's gone. So, you know, if you can get yourself, you know, these snack-sized baggies or sandwich bag and just put in a handful, you know, you'll be good. A handful of like pretzels or chips, that'd be like about an ounce portion worth. And when you're eating out, I'd suggest, you know, try to share your meal. You know, we've already seen an example when you go to an Italian restaurant. You want to share your meal with a friend or two. Or before you start your meal, maybe doggy bag half of it. You know, ask your waiter to have a little takeout container. Put half of it away. Save that half for, you know, lunch the next day or dinner the next night, so that you're not tempted to eat it while you're sitting there at dinner. Try to avoid buffets or all you can eat, but, you know, once in a while is okay. And if you do happen to go, you know, maybe fill up your plate only one time. Don't pile the plate up high with food, and just remember, you know, just be more mindful of your portion sizes. And finally, enjoy your food. Chew your food slowly. It takes the brain about a good 20 minutes for it to, you know, communicate with your stomach to realize that a person's full. You want to put your fork down in between meals. You know, eating should be a pleasurable experience. It shouldn't be torturous. And that's it. And that concludes my portion of the presentation.
Okay, and now please welcome Amy McLean from The Well Balanced Life.
I'm Mimi. I've lived in Darien for the past 10 years. I have 4 children under the age of 10. 2 of them are in the row. I went to, 2 years ago, I decided to go back to school at a place called Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York City, and where I became a holistic health counselor. And while I was there, I decided to focus on children, because I realized what a silent epidemic we're having right now, and I was shocked at the stats that I learned, which I'm going to share with you right now. But I mean, we are the wealthiest country in the world, and we spend the most in healthcare, and we also spend $20 billion a year advertising to our children junk food. And unfortunately, it's catching up with us now, because our children are really becoming sick. And just to share some facts with you, 2/3 of my son's generation, who are 10 years and under, will be obese by the time they hit high school. Half of them will have diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And with that also means they will have a heart attack in high school. One of the doctors that did speak at our school, which I was shocked, he said, 20 years ago, like when I was in high school, no one ever had diabetes. If they had diabetes, it was type 1. They were born with it, or it was early onset. And so what he said 20 years ago, when I would bring up this fact, everyone would be like, oh my gosh, they have diabetes. I can't believe it. And he said, now it's just like, oh yeah, they have diabetes. It's kind of commonplace, which is really sad. And he said, I operated on my first 15-year-old triple bypass. And he's a heart surgeon. And he's like, we all go, oh, right? But in 20 years, it's going to be commonplace that people who are 15 are going to be having, you know, triple bypass surgery. And this is all because of how we eat. And it's really, really sad. But some other facts, just to make them work about it. This will be the first generation that will not outlive their parents, which is really upsetting. 40% of all cancer is diet-related, and 80% of that can be prevented through diet and exercise. And which is the reason why our healthcare, even though it's the largest in the world, you would think we'd be the healthiest, it's not, because a lot of the diseases that are facing our country are all because of diet and nutrition and exercise. So it all can be prevented, and that can't be, you know, can't be corrected through healthcare. No matter what medicine you're on, it's not going to make it go away. Also, in 2001, Americans consumed 15 billion gallons of soft drinks, twice as much as 1974, and the equivalent of, this is scary, 587 12-ounce servings per year for every man, woman, and child. And that assumes everybody drinks soda. I mean, I don't, so take me out of the equation, and then if you double that, if you have half the people. So that's kind of
scary. And the rate of obesity among children today is twice as high as it was in the late 1970s. So we really, it's sad, but it can be fixed if we just change the way we are feeding our children. And so what I'm talking tonight about is about children, but it also applies to all of us. I just enjoy working with children. I go and talk at schools, at the classrooms. I go to people's houses and I talk to their children and try to kind of show them examples of things just so they really can get an idea. And for me, it's not about dieting. It's really about making sure how you feel. And it's like, you can eat what you want, but how do you feel after you had a donut? You know, or how do you feel? And I even say that to my children. Okay, if you have that Capri Sun, that's fine, but in half an hour when you're bouncing off the walls, like, what did you have a half an hour ago? And I try to get them to really realize the connection between how you feel and what you just ate or what you just drank. Because then it all of a sudden makes it easier to stop. It's not about like, oh, I gotta cut the calories, or oh, I gotta make it. It's about how you feel. I don't feel well. I want to eat better. What do I do? And so that kind of connection, I think, helps you kind of get past the dieting. It's not about dieting. It's about living the fullest life you can live. And so that's what I kind of focus on when we do this. But so the diet that we feed our children now is called the SAD diet, which is the standard American diet, and all of you can guess what that is. It's pizza, you know, cheeseburgers, French fries, your typical diet. Not much vegetables, not much fruit, lots of soda, and so that is what is, you know, killing our children and getting them sicker now. And people will say, well, you know, we ate Twinkies when we were little. Yes, we did, but our Twinkies were a lot different than the Twinkies that are now. And that's what I'm going to talk about, is why there's a difference between the food that we gave. Like, you know, we would have cookies. They were home-baked chocolate chip cookies. They weren't processed cookies that could literally sit on the shelf for years and still be the same cookie. And so that is what's making our children sick. So I'm not telling anybody like, okay, that's it, cut out the sugar, don't feed your kid sugar. That's not practical. It's not going to happen. So it's more about like making the right choices based on it, based on what I'm going to share with you tonight. And so we'll start with that. So anyway, so there's a movement out in San Francisco by Alice Waters. I don't know how many people are familiar with her. And then this chef, Ann Cooper. The two of them have literally changed the food out in California, Berkeley area, and they have made working gardens and completely have changed all of the school nutrition programs and the school lunches, which has been phenomenal. And unfortunately, it hasn't really, it's slowly trickling out to the rest of the United States, but it's taking a long time. And so they put this together, which is very similar to, I'm sure it's very familiar to all of you, because this is how you all grew up. This is not familiar to children who are under 10 or under 15. They don't have this. They don't usually have fruits and vegetables on their plate. And they definitely don't have whole grains. It's usually white pasta and white, you know, whatever else, bread or cheese, grilled cheese, unprocessed cheese, and white, you know, bread. So this is typically what you would want to see, and little sugar as possible and little fats as possible. And again, the proteins, you can have them, but smaller size. It shouldn't be half of your plate, like typically you see when you get at a restaurant. Your chicken parm is the entire plate, and maybe you get a little string beans on the side. It should be the other way around. It should be all salad with a little chicken on top, as a condiment, almost. And so, so that's really what it should be, but that's not what it is. So, okay, typically, going back to the Twinkie kind of scenario, your fruit juice, like the fruit juice that we grew up with is normal apple juice. That's not the case now. So when most children get fruit juice, it's actually, you would think it would be fruit, right? It's not. Most like Capri Suns and pouch kind of juices like that contain high fructose corn syrup, which is like the devil. And it's worse than sugar. It's a processed thing that, you know, like 15, 20 years ago they created it because we had a lot of corn that's being grown in the United States, and they figured, how can we use this corn? So they made it into sugar, and it's very, very, very highly processed. It's ultra sweet, and it's very, very addicting. So that's why people who tend to drink soda consume more and more and more because it's so addictive. And so that's the number 2 ingredients, and you keep going on, and then you get to the hydrogenated soybean oil. That's a whole other ballgame, which we'll go into, because again, the hydrogenated is highly processed. It's terrible for you. All these things have been linked to cancer. And then the following, which is also really bad, is the artificial flavors. Yellow, red is the worst. I mean, red, I try to stay away from that at all costs, especially for my kids, because little kids, I find, they have ADD or that red makes them go to the ceiling and back. It's crazy. But anyway, so you would think you were having normal juice, but you're not. So if you are going to have juice, which I tend not to let my children have juice, because why let them consume that much sugar in this? Again, we'll go to that. But so if you are going to have juice, I go for the normal juice that just says apple juice on the back of it, not that has all these ingredients, and half of them you don't know what they are. Okay, so then while I was at school, there was a professor who I totally admire. His name is David Katz. He's not a professor, he's a doctor out of Yale, and he has taken on this movement of trying to convince and get the word out for children and trying to change all of, just to let people know that this is an epidemic. He was the one who told us about the heart surgery, that he's the one who performed heart surgery. So he's out of Yale, and he's created this awesome program called Nutrition Perspectives, which I'm going to share with you tonight. And he tries to break it down and to show to you, there's 5 clues that you want to look at. So this is for children, for anybody. When you're looking at, I know we can't avoid, let me step back for a second, sorry. Ideally, what a perfect meal would look like is something that didn't come out of a bag or a box, and that came out of the ground, and it was lettuce and fruits and vegetables and meat that's organic and healthy and real, alive food. But that's not going to be the case, especially for children, because we have so many packaged foods. We live in a fast life that we have to bring things and pack things or whatever. So what I'm saying now is to try to, like, when you are looking at packaged food, look at the best option of what you have and be educated about what really is in the ingredients when you're at the grocery store. So that's kind of what this is about. So the first clue, because you don't want to be fooled by the big letters on the front. So for example, let's take Fruit Loops, okay? If you're trying to market to your children, so Fruit Loops, it says, reduce sugar to make you think that there's no sugar inside, And then it goes on to say it's multi-grain, 11 vitamins and minerals, natural fruit flavors, no artificial sweeteners, excellent source of vitamin C and iron. So it's 25% less sugar than the original Kellogg's Fruit Loops. So it makes you want to think that it's really kind of healthier than normal, and they've tried really hard. They've put a lot of vitamins in there. It actually could be healthy for your children. So what I'm telling you is forget the front. That's all marketing. They're allowed to kind of they have a different set of rules for the front. So just ignore that and go to the side where it says the nutritional facts on the side. So just so, I'm sure most of you already know this, but the first ingredient that's listed is the one that has the highest ingredient, the most in here. So if sugar's first, I would just put it down and walk away. Because usually that means there's a lot of sugar in there. And as Jessica said, there's 4 to 1, for 1 teaspoon. So that is the first thing. So the first ingredient is always the biggest. You want to avoid partially hydrated oil and high fructose corn syrup. Those two really are just awful. I can't even, the results aren't out there. I mean, they're not as published as you would want to be. There's a great book that I read called The Unhealthy Truth, which she went into the whole thing about genetically modified and all this kind of new stuff it's really money driven, and no one's talking about it. But it's been banned in Europe, and we're still having it in our products here in the United States, and no one's doing anything about it because no one really knows about it. They've kept it quiet, and it's awful. But it causes cancer, it causes all these other really bad diseases. And unfortunately, now you're starting to see a little bit. It says, no, contains no vitamin oils, and they actually unite our school, the school I went to, IIM, they were behind all of New York City getting all the hydrogenated oils out of the trans fats out of all the restaurants. And they only did it in New York City, but they haven't done it everywhere else. So, but those two things are really bad. Hydrogenated oil, high fructose corn syrup, and I would add the genetically modified, the GMOs. Which Ronnie's going to talk about because it's organic and all that. But so, and avoid foods with a long ingredient list. So if it has a really long list, chances are you really don't want, that means it's just fake. If you can't read it, you're putting that into your body, and I don't know. Like people say to me, what is this? And they'll say the word, and I'm like, I don't know, but don't eat it. Why do I need to know that? Keep it simple. You don't really need to know all that stuff, because if you can't read it, don't put it in your body. And what they say is to keep it, the ingredients, you really want to keep the ingredient list less than 5. If you can keep it less than 5, that's ideal. And if you can actually read everything, that's even better. I mean, even if it's ice cream and you can read everything, you know what? It's a lot better than eating this that's been processed. So that's another thing with ice cream, like what we feed our children. Like, I'll give my kids ice cream, but I can't stand giving them the Good Humor truck, because half of that ice cream, the Good Humor truck, leaves their mouth green and their clothes are stained forever. And then you can't read any of the products on it if they even give you a list on the back. But it's just awful where it's not real. Whereas at least if you're going to get Breyers or Ben & Jerry's, it's real. It's not the best thing, you're better off having an apple, but if you're going to have ice cream, I would go for something that you can read and that hasn't been stuck on a shelf. And then the last thing was fiber is your friend. So you really want to find something that has more than 2 grams per serving of fiber. So that just adds more bulk and more nutrition to your meal. And then, so a couple other things I just want to show you. When I show my, the kids when I talk to them, it's kind of interesting. For example, like Heinz tomato ketchup, you would think it's pretty, good. And the problem with like Heinz, if you don't get it, if it's not organic, the number like 2. I'm sorry, I just turned 40 and I can't read anymore. Or I'm about to turn 40 and I can't read anymore. But I don't know what number it is, but it is on here. And I'm shocked that high fructose corn syrup is like number 2 or 3 ingredient on here. And if you do have organic, if you do go buy organic like ketchup, but Heinz does now sell organic ketchup for not that much more. I think you're talking maybe 50 cents, $1 more. Anything that's organic, they cannot put high fructose corn syrup, genetically modified, into it. It's just not allowed. It's illegal. So at all costs, if you can, make things organic, especially when it comes to getting out the high fructose corn syrup or the genetically modified is ideal. Because really, it's genetically modified is what's causing most of the fertility problems. Most of the pigs that are eating the corn that are genetically modified are no longer having babies. Or there are piglets that are born that die within a few weeks. It's really, really bad. So, and believe it or not, bread, too, you would never think it. The number 2 or 3 ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. So unless it's organic bread, you think you're buying whole wheat bread, and it's going to be great, Pepperidge Farms, something like that. Unless it's organic, it has high fructose corn syrup in it. And so that is one takeaway I would say for you guys today, is that if you can just try to get the high fructose corn syrup out, the genetically modified, and just have what you do eat be organic as much as you can, it just alleviates those chemicals that are really causing problems. And it's not about giving up everything, because that's not practical. No one's going to say, don't eat ice cream, don't have this, don't have that. It's all about the 80-20 rule, right? If you can 80% of the time eat really well, and 20% of the time leave it Saturdays, you want to go out and have pizza and have fun, great, or enjoy yourself, you have to live. But it's about modification, and it's about just trying to get out this new garbage that was created and go back to the basic of things that you can pronounce and read and all that. So anyway, so some healthy snacks if you don't want to go the packaged fruit route. Fruit, frozen grapes, rice cakes with almond butter, do sunflower butter. In my family, popcorn, you can make it. I would tend to stay away from the popcorn that you pop that already has like oil in it, like if you can make it. Carrots and hummus, fruit smoothies are so good, so easy. My kids make them every morning. Even my 2-year-old made them this morning on her own. I couldn't believe it. And celery and peanut butter, dried fruits and nuts. My kids love that. Organic yogurt. Again, be careful with the yogurts. For example, you think you're being really, really healthy, but the one with the fruit on the bottom has so much sugar. It's surprising. It's really, this has 28 grams of sugar in this one little cup, which is like almost half of it is sugar, if you think about it. So what I tend to do is like get the either Greek yogurt that's, you can get a low fat or regular that comes plain, and then add your own sugar to it, meaning I'll either add maple syrup or honey to it, something that's more natural and it's real, and it's actually made by bees or a tree and not by a plant, a chemical plant. And then apple or almond butter, sprouted toast. You might think that's gross, but Ezekiel bread, which is usually frozen. You can get it, Whole Foods you can get at the Stop and Shop in Norwalk or in Darien. is great. It's sprouted, it's so filling, and they also come in an English muffin size. It's great. You put butter on it, you would think it sounds really bad, but it's not. It's actually really, really good because it's thick and it's yummy. Pickles or natural tricks, again, I would go for the organic because then you're staying away from the corn that you want, organic corn if you can, because that's genetically modified. But 90% of the corn from the United States is genetically modified. Unfortunately, nobody in the rest of the world will take our corn. They, even Africa, we shipped it down there to donate it, and they turned the boat around and brought it back. It's really sad, and you don't even know any of this, but it's upsetting, and it's what's making our water polluted. Or no one's having fertility problems. It's all because of genetically modified. Okay, again, baked goods. If you're going to give your kids or yourself cookies or whatever, I suggest baking them from scratch. Even if you can try to throw the whole wheat flour into the white flour, that's even better. Or get a different sugar, like a turbinado sugar, or a couple other healthier sugars. But stay away from the process that's been in a bag. You have no idea how long. And then homemade fruit juice pops, or we even make lemonade fresh at our house. We put water in a blender with ice, squeeze lemons, and put a little bit of raw organic, agave nectar, and it's your own little lemonade, and the kids love that. So, I would try to stay away from soda. If any of you still drink soda, somebody was saying to me, what's one thing you would stop doing? I'd say give up soda, because there's nothing nutritional about it. It's all chemicals. Even if you have diet soda, they say that that's what's causing a lot of brain cancer, because the diet, the NutraSweet, and then the regular stuff, have a lot of sugar in it, like Jessica talked about. So that would be the one thing I would say to anybody, if you can. And why drink those calories? Just go to water. I think we're supposed to wait until the end. I thought you were signing my time's up. Okay, so because I can go around, it's my favorite stuff to talk about. So someone got up and give me the hook. Okay, so then what was my last thing? I know I had lots of things to talk about. So drink water was one of my things that cuts out lots of calories. And I guess, did I hit my 20 minutes? Otherwise I'll keep talking. I guess that's it for now. Thank you.
And now please welcome Rana Corlin from Whole Foods Market.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rana Corlin, and I'm a healthy eating specialist for Whole Foods Market. I'm also a certified health coach, a graduate of the Integrative Nutrition School, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. So Mimi is a colleague from that school. And I represent a brand new healthy eating initiative at Whole Foods Market. It's really exciting. As a health coach, I discovered that John Matthew, the CEO of Whole Foods, after bringing people fresh, natural, some organic, lots of local foods for 30 years. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary. Many of you celebrated that with us. He decided that he was going to expand his conversation with the customer and bring them healthy eating education. So you're going to hear more about that, and many of you here tonight have actually attended my classes, and I look forward, hopefully, to seeing many more of you. So this healthy eating initiative is based on 4 eating principles, and I'm going to describe those to you now. First, it's to eat real food, whole food that's intact, sometimes organic, often, very often local. Eating plant strong or plant centered. You may have heard those expressions before. And the emphasis of that is focused on fruits and vegetables, grains, whole grains, nuts, legumes, and seeds. Plant centered. The third principle is healthy fats. One that I'm holding up right now, a nutritional powerhouse, is the avocado, along with, as we mentioned, the nuts and seeds. And if you are somebody who is eating dairy, or wherever you are in your dietary path, if you're eating meat, you're looking for lean versions. And then lastly is eating nutrient-dense food. Less focus on what we call macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. There's so much focus on that in dieting, as Mimi had mentioned, and we're really trying to get away from the concept of deprivation of dieting and lean into the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals. That's where the sweet spot is. So my topic this evening is how to be a budget organic. And first, I want to pose a few questions and leave you a couple really interesting statistics as it relates to that. Is organic more nutritious? A brand new analysis of about 100 studies, including more than 40 published in the past 7 years, found that the average levels of nearly a dozen nutrients are 25% higher in organic products. Next, does organic impact weight management? Research in rats found that those fed an all-organic diet versus conventional food had lower weights, less body fat, and stronger immune systems. Plus, the clean diet animals were eating, in this case with organic, were calmer and slept much better. And lastly, does eating organic mean fewer toxins? That's what people are usually focused on, like the pesticides that are covering these fruits and vegetables. Eating the 12 most contaminated fruits and vegetables, you often hear that referred to as the dirty dozen, and I'll go into specifically what those are shortly, exposes you to about 14 pesticides a day. A study supported by the EPA measured pesticide levels in children's urine before and after a switch to an organic diet. After just 5 days, the chemicals decreased to undetectable. And that was actually provided by thedailygreen.com. It's a great website that I encourage you to check out. Very informing. Most people are aware of the benefits of organic, and as it relates to pesticides and the percentage of nutrients, that organics generally taste better. I went and was eating a organic carrot a couple of days ago and found myself in the market, running to my team members to have them taste, to break this carrot up into bite-sized pieces, because it tasted so much more like a carrot than carrots generally taste. And it's only by experiencing that yourself that you really kind of sense that there's actually a vibration to some organic produce, and it's quite memorable. And it's the kind of thing that you want to repeat. So why don't more people eat organic? And generally the answer is because it's more expensive. That's predominantly why folks say that they don't lean into that. So tonight what I want to do is I want to offer you some smart shopping tactics that are going to allow you to eat healthier, save money, and eat organic more affordably. For starters, look at the food that you consume every day. What does your diet consist of? Are you a milk drinker? And if you are, studies reveal organic milk contains 75% more beta-carotene, about the serving of the side of Brussels sprouts, 50% more immune system boosting vitamin E, and 70% more omega-3 fatty acids. And a lot of organic milks do not cost significantly more than regular, and that's a great place to start. So the same goes for yogurt and cheese and eggs as well. And what about meat? It's such a polarizing conversation when meat eaters are talking to non-meat eaters, and I don't pass judgment on that. I just encourage people to eat leaner versions of dairy, leaner versions of meat, and that really puts them in a position to often reverse potential for chronic disease and reverse symptoms of it if they're predisposed or heading in that direction. And as we were talking about earlier, portion size is important. So for instance, Jessica was talking about portion size, and in the case of something like meat, a 3-ounce serving is plenty. Your fist, the size of the deck of cards, that's really what you're talking about portion-wise for meat. That's going to cut your meal costs if you are eating organic meat in small portions. It's going to save you money to buy more organic food, and it's going to, really boost your nutritional balance. Number 2 is to shop in season, and that's going to save you money too. The absolute best time to buy organic is at the peak of its season. And as the season progresses, there's more produce, and the price has a tendency to shift downward, often dramatically. So right now we're eating for fall. We're getting rooted in root vegetables. They're giving us a grounding energy. Those are the squashes and the sweet potatoes. Things like onions and beets, things that you see in abundance in your green markets wherever you're going. So you want to lean into that stuff. It's in abundance, it's well priced, and even local. It doesn't have to be organic, because very often those farmers, high integrity, they're not spraying their crops, and there's a savings there too when you're eating local. And so it's organic and local. Both of those are things to keep in mind. Farmers keep a watchful eye over the crops, and simultaneously the crops are not traveling a great distance, so there again is a level of integrity layered on. You want to buy local and fresh, and also grab store discount flyers. Tonight you'll see we'll be offering you the opportunity to pick up the whole deal if you haven't seen it. It's loaded with information and coupons, and big savings. I think about close to $50 worth of savings. These come out in our market, they come out in other markets, but this is a real money saver. And you want to visit company websites too, like if you go to Stonyfield, Stonyfieldfarms.com and organicvalley.com. A lot of these manufacturers love to hear from you. If you love their products, they'll send you a coupon. These are additional ways for you to be able to explore, easing into organics. Be on the lookout for coupons. So when you write to the companies, they may send you one or two, or get you on their mailing list for added value, as we do. You can contact us at Whole Foods, and we'll inform you when things are going on sale. There's a great savings there. Shop the house brand. Whether it's R365, which is 365 days of savings, or whatever store's house brand is, it's a lot more expensive when you're buying organic than traditional brands that are more recognizable. And on display here, like this side of the table here shows you a number of our organic offerings that are house brand. And some of these are just high value items that are organic and inexpensive comparatively. To nab the best deals, you kind of want to be focused and stockpile your items. If you see something that's on sale that's not too perishable, a lot of hard goods, get a number of them instead of one or two, and you'll leverage the savings. Buy in bulk to stretch the dollar. A lot of people kind of walk by the bulk section. They sort of like to see a little in packaging, and it makes them feel comfortable. But bulk is a tremendous savings. Greens and dried fruits and nuts. All of these things offer you savings and an opportunity to explore organic. The notion of trying it before you buy it. Mimi was talking about the sprouted bread. I think that is right now my favorite product on the planet. And I talk about it a lot. I was recently on News 12 Connecticut doing energizing breakfasts and using sprouted bread. Every time someone comes into the store and I'm giving a healthy eating tour, I take them over to the sprouted bread. What's unique about sprouted bread is it's nutritionally dense beyond traditional classic the bread that we eat. It's 5 to 6 grams of protein a serving, and the most compelling element of the sprouted bread for me is that it gets digested as a vegetable instead of a grain. And for those of you who kind of feel a little bit wheat intolerant, some of you may have celiac disease, others just don't feel right when you're eating wheat, this is an opportunity to explore, playfully explore, what options there are out there. I know for myself, I'm slightly wheat intolerant. That really resonates in my body. It's really important to listen to your body. It has a lot more to tell you than some of the shelf health books that are out there. And I encourage you to be your own nutrition specialist. Come into the market, visit people that are in the profession of nutrition, but listening to your body can learn a tremendous amount about what food suits you. You know, it's a bio-individuality. One man's food is another man's poison. So in our bakery, we'll offer you a sample. Anything you want to try as you're walking around the store. Try it before you buy it. If there's an organic thing that appeals to you, ask for a sample. And decide, prioritize what do you want to prioritize in terms of organics? What really excites you? You know, if you could begin to prioritize, say like chicken and eggs and meat, that's a good item to focus on, because those tend to have a lot of pesticides, hormones, antibiotics, and that USDA organic label assures you that there are no chemical fertilizers or pesticides associated with the product. Now, you'll see a lot of products like eggs, for instance, will say pasture-raised and natural. This is wording which is used often, but it's a little bit misleading and feels good when you see it, but it doesn't really mean anything. Because chickens may not have seen the light of day, but they're romancing you. Many of you have seen Food Inc. It was shown here last night. How many by show of hands, I'm curious, have seen Food Inc.? Yeah, the majority here. And if you haven't, I encourage you to take it out or purchase it. It's very revealing and will make you think twice the next time you get into a supermarket. Other items to definitely buy organic, I mentioned the Dirty Dozen. These are the items that the Environmental Working Group has established can reduce pesticide exposure 80% by avoiding the Dirty Dozen. The Dirty Dozen: celery, peaches, strawberries, apples, things with a thin skin, nectarines, sweet bell peppers, spinach. This is the first year that kale got on the list. Any of you that have not tried kale, it's a nutritional powerhouse. Throw a drop of olive oil on it, pop it in your oven, rip it up. You can slip the fiber stem off of it at an oven for 350, 3 minutes on each side, and you'll have kale chips. And that's a really interesting way of getting introduced to it. There is more nutritional density in these leafy greens, with all due respect to broccoli and spinach, collards and kale, Swiss chard. These items will give you so much energy that I don't want to overstate it. I just encourage you to try them and see how you feel after you eat them and the next day. And if you're going into a meeting and want to feel real focused and energized, eat that the night before and watch what happens. Jessica had talked about, and Mimi did too, about restructuring your plate. Okay, so using organic meat, say, as a condiment, and using less expensive whole grains and vegetables that are always jockeying for position with the chicken or meat or solid protein that you're using. And it's a question of reshifting, you know, rebalancing that plate so that you are using a little bit of, say, some of these expensive items that are organic, but you know that they have a purity to them. You can taste it and you can feel it, and balancing it out with grains and greens and vegetables. Consider more plant-strong proteins like beans, nuts, and seeds, avocado, as I mentioned before. These are healthy fats. And these kinds of things, you know, it's not like you're going to overeat them. Your body looks for satiety. You need a little bit of fat in your diet. And I'm really encouraging you to explore that balance and making sure, like you walk into the market at Whole Foods, and there's something called the anti-scoring system. It represents aggregate nutrient density index. And in a nutshell, what it says is on a spectrum 0 to 1,000, a can of soda is 0 nutritionally versus its calories, and kale is 1,000. It's a rock star. So as you walk through the store in each department, you know, I give tours on this, you can discover in each department by department where the nutritionally dense foods are. And as we discussed earlier about reading labels, but when you're eating nutritionally dense food that's real, that's a healthy fat or lean protein that is nutrient dense, your body automatically adjusts. Your appetite isn't running wild. You don't have to worry about cravings. Your cravings go away. And but it requires, you know, practice. You know, that's how you get to Carnegie Hall. Practice, practice. We're going to actually open this up to questions as soon as I'm done, and I'm actually just wrapping it up. I just wanted to mention that I do offer healthy eating tours at the store. We have weekly value tours too, which is pretty cool, where you can actually, you'll be walked around the store and things pointed out to you, private branding, special sales, you know, information that's special. Right now, actually, for instance, Stonyfield, as we speak, Stonyfield yogurt, we have a one-day special today where you get 10 yogurts for $4. That's something that we announced yesterday on Facebook, so I hope you'll follow us there, you know, friend us on Facebook and allow us to, you know, keep you well informed. You know, don't let anyone tell you that eating organic is unrealistic or, you know, outrageously expensive. Because in fact, for my money, it's the best eating in the world. And fresh, local, and organic really is the ultimate. And if you're willing to do some creative shopping and some cooking, you'll find that you can enjoy the freshness and goodness of organic without breaking your food budget. Thanks.
I want to invite the rest of our panel up here, and we can open the floor to questions.
Does the USDA actually supervise organic? Like how do they supervise organic?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if you're buying, you're making organic, and you don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, nobody can put the USDA, the green and white USDA label on something without going through some serious criteria in order to meet the standard. You know, you will never find a USDA product that doesn't meet strong criteria.
Right. The other thing I would point out too is, especially when you go to your local markets, you know, like your own thing, a lot of small farms can't afford to have the stamp of the organic. It's very, very expensive with a lot of procedures they have to jump through, lawyers they have to hire in order to get that. So a lot of these small places, that's why I say if you eat locally, it might be better than eating organic apple from Chile. Because that might be just as clean here, but they can't get the stamp because they don't have the money because they're a small farm.
Yeah, it's interesting. The other thing is that sometimes conventional, you know, you walk into a market and there's conventional produce and then there's organic produce. Sometimes the conventional produce is on its way from the farmer to becoming organic, but it takes a couple years for them to get that seal. So you could actually be eating stuff that it has as much integrity as organic, and it's poised to be organic, but it's just, you know, it's a local item. So.
Yeah. So all, like, if I'm at Whole Foods and I see apples that are from Connecticut versus organic Chile apples, I might tend to get the more organic ones, or something from the farmer's market, just because it's closer. It's probably been picked within the week, whereas the ones from Chile were probably picked even though they're organic. We just picked them out of there.
I'm trying to lose weight, and I'm
Sorry.
Is it true that you should try to eat your carbohydrates earlier in the day and not have any at the end of the day because of you know, when you're sleeping, it's harder to metabolize the sugar?
We come from the school of bio-individuality. One man's food's another man's poison. Check it out. Like one day do that and see how you feel, and one day the next. See how it affects your mood, your weight, how you generally feel, your lethargy or lack of it. You know, listen to your body. That will tell you exactly, you know, how you should roll.
Yeah, I would say food combining has never bothered me. I've never even concentrated on it because it doesn't, but it does some people. The one thing I have heard is you're not supposed to have fruit last. Because fruit is the quickest digesting. So if you have it at the end of your meal, it's literally sitting on top of your meal. Have you heard that?
I think, yeah, I would be actually more concerned with how much liquid you're drinking at a meal and not have more than about a half of a cup so that it's not sloshing around with your food and you get better digestion. But each of us are going to have a slightly different impression. You know, it's polarizing whether food combining is valid or not.
Yeah.
And also, like, if you're a diabetic, you really don't want to eat your carbohydrates by itself. You should always combine, you know, a little bit of protein as well as fat to slow down the absorption of glucose into your bloodstream so that you don't get those sugar highs, sugar spikes.
Well, I just want to know, how do you determine the integrity of a product if it says organic but isn't certified organic?
It would have to be certified organic for it to say organic.
So that every product that says organic is certified
You
organic.
want to look for that seal. You'll see, you can walk up after and look to see that green and white seal.
I mean, they can get in the same trouble.
Yeah. And you know, you'll natural, or some people will actually say organic. They can say organic, they just can't have the seal. So that's something you will now be aware of when you're looking at.
Natural means nothing. So if you see someone that's natural, like it's supposed to be healthy, it doesn't mean anything.
Can you explain a bit about the, what you call it, the dirty dozen? So is it that there are certain foods that you definitely should be eating organic?
Yeah, this is this Dirty Dozen. As I said, it's the environmental working group. Go online and Google Dirty Dozen. There's actually Dirty Dozen and Clean Dozen.
So is it that those foods you have to eat organic?
No, well, what it's saying is that 80% of the residue exposure, you can eliminate that by getting the Dirty Dozen inorganic. That's really the bottom line.
Question about the multivitamins for children. Is it necessary if they're healthy to still give them?
There's such a mixed review. I believe in them, but I know there are a lot of people who don't. I think even if you eat a perfectly healthy diet, which I think is pretty impossible for children today, the food is not as nutrient as it used to be. You know, so even if it is an organic carrot, it's probably less nutrient because our soil has been depleted and our. So I would say yes. I study my children, but that's just my opinion.
I kind of feel like when I take vitamins, I gain weight. I don't know. Is that true?
Well, that goes back to the it depends on you. Like, it could be that you do. Like, I feel better when I take my vitamins. I can tell when I don't take my vitamins. You know, like, I don't go to Pilates because it makes me heavier. And some people there. You know, I think it depends on who each.
Well, the thing with multivitamins and gaining weight, it may not be the multivitamin because the only things that make you gain weight are eating protein, fats, and carbs because those are the things that provide calories. And in vitamins, unless there's something added in the multivitamin other than vitamins and minerals like sugar, you know, those are the added calories that would make people feel good.
And then last suggestion, which one is the good one from the multivitamins if I go whole foods group?
Well, I'm a little prejudiced. I'm going to say 365, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with a one a day. Many of you grew up. It's very old school. For women, I'd make sure that it has D and calcium. Definitely make sure you're getting enough calcium. And it also supports weight management.
I actually have 3 questions. What do you think of xylitol as a sweetener? This is for anyone who wants to answer it. Is there an ice cream that's low fat and low sugar that I can buy somewhere and not make? And my sister-in-law recently came down with diabetes, and I'd like to get her a diabetes cookbook. Which one would you recommend?
I think this is probably a good place to start in the library. And I would also walk into like a Barnes & Noble type of store that's got, and also come into the market, we also have cookbooks as well. So.
I'd like to suggest that you contact the Diabetic Association, and they have cookbooks, and that might be one of the benefits.
But in general, you want to get your any kind of diet or cookbook that talks about just getting your sugar back to normal, so there's not a spike that you're trying to get away from the spike of the sugar. And like white's not white. Just remember that. Like anything that's white, you shouldn't be having it. White calorie bread.
And what do you think of xylitol as a sweetener?
By individuality, try it and see how you feel using it. I don't know. Honestly,
I've heard it's kind of process too. I mean,
I'm not someone that likes to add sugar to things. I think things should be fruit sweetened generally, but
I go with stevia before I do that, or I go with like a agave nectar, a raw organic agave.
something that's more plant-centered.
Yeah. Xylitol I think is just processed from what I've heard. But I don't usually go down that route. Even though I have heard that xylitol was great for diabetics because it doesn't spike the
the blood sugar level.
Agave and maple syrup might do the same.
And what about ice cream? Is there any such thing as a low
I
fat?
love ice cream.
I guess the light is
With Splenda,
You want
and it still has also, I think still has sugar alcohol.
I would say, I would personally rather see you have regular sugar than have like Splenda or any processed.
What's wrong with Splenda? Because I use that.
It's just the processed, it's the chemical processed sugar that they say is related to like brain cancer. And I would just say, right, I would just say, I'd rather have you have white regular sugar than having weird processed sugar.
Even Splenda. Whatever you do.
You know what, I think each of us is going to have a completely different opinion as far as the ice cream goes. Again, and I know I don't mean to be a broken recorder, but you really have to try these things. Like, I found for myself, I love Julia's gluten-free ice cream sandwiches. That works really for me. And the other thing I love is Sweet Nothings. They're fudgicles that are fruit juice sweetened. But each person's going to react really differently. And you know, you can Google things like xylitol and see what you're going to hear a lot of polarizing, and that's the way nutrition is. The landscape is complex, it's slightly confusing. It's not a simple question. So I think that when you speak to practitioners, everybody sort of has a different experience with it and comes from a different school of thinking.
But another ice cream that you guys carry, which is good if you've ever tried, is the coconut milk ice cream that you guys carry. It's so good. It's not made from dairy. So I try to personally reduce the dairy in our diet. So it's made from coconut milk, which is great nutritionally, and it's so good. So I would.
And I would also check out fruit juice sweetened ice cream. Let's move on.
I have a question regarding serving sizes for kids. I have a 5-year-old, and normally when I serve dinner for the family, I tend to give her a little bit less than us. But sometimes I find that sometimes there's not enough for her, and sometimes it's too much for her. And I want to try to go in the middle ground. And also, she prefers water over mostly everything. And my concern is that she's not getting enough milk.
Well, with regards to the serving sizes for a 5-year-old, the rule of thumb for children between the ages of 2 and 5 is 1 tablespoon of every type of food for every year of age. So for a 5-year-old, it would be like 5 tablespoons of, if you're having broccoli. And then if you're having like a piece of protein like chicken, it would be 5 tablespoons worth of chicken. And then as they approach 8 years old to adolescence, it's usually about 1/3 of an adult-sized portion.
As far as everyone has a different opinion about dairy, I think we kind of come from the same school that they don't really promote dairy. In the food pyramid that we went to school, they didn't even have dairy on the chart. They don't believe in dairy. So I would not, if she doesn't drink milk, I would not push it. You can get your calcium from you can get your calcium more from spinach and broccoli than you can from milk. So I would not let that concern you at all. Also, as far as servings and like what she eats, she changes, right, because she's growing. So some days she doesn't feel like eating, some days she'll eat so much. I'm like, how did you eat? Because they're growing. The only thing I make my children do is eat their vegetables. I don't even make them eat their meat. Because I have found too that some people, like depending on their blood type, my one son is supposed to kind of be a vegetarian based on his blood type, and he doesn't ever prefer meat. He doesn't want to eat it. So I'm not going to force him to eat his meat. The only thing I make him eat is fruits and his vegetables. And then he'll eat it once in a while, but I don't make him eat it.
Well, does she eat, say, yogurt?
Yeah, but it's the
yogurt.
one with high sugar concentration. Thanks to you guys, it's been pointed out. Well,
You know how I converted my kids from that? I used to have a lot of it. And then what I did was I took the Greek yogurt and we made fruit salads with it. So I had cooked up cut up a bunch of bacon or a bunch of berries and fruit. And then they mixed it in with the yogurt and literally made almost like a parfait. So it was almost like some yogurt with a lot of fruit too. So they got both in there. And it was really bad.
The fruit that Giovanni and so forth, you
those are no-go? I mean, the Greek, they're really popular now, the Greek yogurts, the Lechibani, those things. They come with fruit.
If I do yogurt, yes, I'll do that, but I'll do plain. And then add our own fruit. Because then it's fresh fruit.
Sugar in there.
Yeah, because it's literally just, it's not real fruit. It's kind of fruit with, a lot of sugar added to it.
I think also, people who are eating dairy, who feel good eating dairy, low-fat dairy, I feel very grounded eating eggs. I love eating raw cheese, like there's a raw Emmentaler we have in the market. It digests easily, and I think that you should explore that for yourself.
My son has a slew of food allergies. He's 4. He's 4. He's starting to grow out of some of it, which is great because we've kept him away from everything since he was 1. I give him a lot of soy. And I feel like I've given him a lot of soy milk and stuff because the rice milk doesn't have fat. He's so skinny because he can't. I mean, it's dairy, eggs, and nuts, and he's allergic to, so it's really hard. What's your school of thought on soy, especially for a little boy? I know, it's really political.
I personally wouldn't give him soy. I noticed an article I just read yesterday. They came across that soy, it was about soy formula. I don't know where it came from. Maybe Dr. McCullough. If anybody ever gets Dr. McCullough newsletters, they're great. Just go online, use that, it's great. He's a doctor that kind of sends great updates every day. And he was saying how children who were fed with soy in formula tend to have a lot less, their intelligence is less. But also it's their estrogen thing. I don't know. I would try to say.
I breastfed him for 18 months. Is that
I don't know. Soy I get nervous about. Like, I mean, it's supposed to be great for you, but when it's processed like that, it's hard. You're better off having like the real form, Because they say soy is great because the Japanese don't drink soy milk. They have it in the real form.
What's the best way to get fats into good fats into a child?
Avocado, guacamole,
nuts.
Guacamole.
It's tough. I OD'd him on avocado as a baby. Now he's just going.
That's something I have as well. I have a 2-year-old who eats nothing. It can go days with nothing, not eggs, not things, not even chocolates, nothing. And his skin is lowest, doesn't give anything.
Regarding pesticide retention, how do frozen vegetables compare with fresh?
A
Not
lot of the frozen,
necessarily organic, but
they're harvested at the peak of the season. I'm a big proponent of frozen vegetables. They grab them at the peak and they flash freeze them, and they're a heck of a lot better than some of the vegetables that would potentially, in some supermarket, sit in a truck going from California to New York, or fly into the country and be 5 days later with a nutritional density just as
I'm
opposed to
laughing
flash
because
frozen.
I lost 40 pounds doing microwave chopped broccoli and microwave chopped spinach.
And now, what's the nutrients?
Not palatable, but it worked.
If you cook them versus, I'm sorry, we're on vegetables, so I just want to say, if you're cooking them versus eating them raw, is that the nutrients that much better?
Cook them very little.
Very little.
I mean, like, really don't overcook them. Gentlemen, yes.
Is there a similarity between kosher and organic?
Well, the thing that's great about kosher is just there's a lot of rabbis that are making sure that the product has a lot of integrity. But how about kosher organic? Absolutely.
And one thing, at the end of my presentation, I knew I wanted to tell you a story that someone sent me today, and I thought it was really kind of pertinent. It's really funny. If you Google it and just put in Happy Meal is ageless, no decay in a year on a shelf life. This woman, I don't know if you have seen this, it's going around on the internet. She bought a Happy Meal a year ago, and it turned 1 today. And she took a picture of it, and it literally looks the same as it did a year ago. Just think about that when you go through.
That
underscores
Nothing.
eating real
Picture of
food.
it. See, nothing has to do with it.
Okay. Thank you so much to our panel of experts.